My mother pointed her finger at me across the worn kitchen table and said, "You're replaceable. Don't forget that." At 63 years old, after spending most of my life holding this family together through every crisis, every broken plan, every emergency no one else wanted to handle, I just froze. I looked around the room and realized something my mother never had. I realized I had built this entire life they were standing in, piece by piece, while they all acted like I was just a temporary convenience. The hum of the old refrigerator filled the silence. The same kitchen where I used to peel potatoes as a teenager while my younger brother Shane ran outside without a care, and my mother praised him just for showing up to dinner on time. And in that moment, something inside me stopped begging to be understood. And before we go further, if you've ever been the family member everyone depended on while pretending you didn't matter, subscribe to this channel. A lot of us know exactly what that feels like. And tell me below, where are you watching from tonight? Because my story didn't start that day. It started decades earlier, the first time I realized my name only mattered when something went wrong. I was always the one they called. When my father's health declined, it was me filling out the hospital forms. When bills piled up, it was me covering them quietly so no one worried. When my mother needed groceries, prescriptions, rides, repairs, it was always me. Shane, my brother? He was the one they smiled about. "He's got such a free spirit," my mother would say, even when he disappeared for months at a time. I was called responsible, reliable, strong. Words that slowly stopped sounding like compliments and started sounding like obligations. Every crisis in this family had my fingerprints on it, but never my name in the credits. And somehow, I still kept believing that one day they would see me. They never did. Years passed like that. Holidays at the same table. Thanksgiving turkey that I mostly cooked. Church potlucks where my casserole dishes were always so helpful. Birthday cards I signed while already planning the next emergency they'd forget to thank me for. And I told myself it was love. That's what daughters do, right? Until it stopped feeling like love and started feeling like being useful. My mother never asked if I was tired. She asked what I could fix next, and I always did. Shane, on the other hand, could do almost nothing and still be praised. If he called once a month, my mother would light up like he had returned from war. If I called every day, it was just expected. Routine. Background noise. I once paid for Shane's car repair without telling anyone after he forgot again. My mother thanked me for being so dependable, and then turned around and asked when I was going to visit more often, like I hadn't just saved her favorite son from losing his job. That's when I started realizing something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't loved differently. I was needed differently. And that difference changes everything. It happened on a Sunday dinner. Nothing special. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the old lace tablecloth my mother refuses to throw away even though it's yellowing at the edges. Shane was there for once, laughing too loud, telling stories that didn't quite add up. I had just finished explaining how I'd helped fix an issue with my mother's medical insurance again. I said it casually. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would acknowledge it this time. Instead, silence stretched. Then my mother leaned back in her chair, looked directly at me, and said, "You're replaceable. Don't forget that." The room didn't just go quiet. It collapsed. Even Shane stopped smiling. And I felt it, not just the words, but the years behind them. The decades of being invisible unless I was useful. If that sentence would have broken your heart too, subscribe right now. Because what happened after those words changed the way I saw my family forever. I didn't argue. That's what surprised everyone. I just looked around. The kitchen cabinets I had paid to fix after a leak. The new stove I installed when theirs broke. The living room sofa I quietly bought when theirs was falling apart. The hospital bills I had covered so many times I lost count. It was all there. My money.
My time.
My exhaustion. Built into the walls like I had been silently constructing their life while they pretended I was optional. And for the first time I didn't feel small. I felt awake. In that silence, Memories started rising that I had buried for years. Vacations I never took because someone always needed help. A relationship I let fade because I was always busy. Dreams of moving somewhere else, working less, living more. Dreams I kept postponing until there was no version of my life left that belonged only to me. I had been living a life where everyone else got to choose, and I just made it possible. And somehow, I was still the one called replaceable. That realization didn't make me angry at first. It made me tired, deeply tired. Something shifted that night. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped defending my worth. I stopped trying to earn a place I had already been standing in for decades. I just became quiet. And in that quiet, something powerful replaced the noise. Clarity. The next week, I stopped answering immediately. The next emergency call from Shane? I didn't rush. The next request for money? I said no. The next demand disguised as a favor? I said I couldn't. At first, no one believed it. Then they got confused. Then they got frustrated. And then they started struggling. Shane disappeared again, like he always did when responsibility showed up. My mother's small problems started stacking up. Things she never noticed before suddenly became urgent. Appointments missed. Bills delayed. Repairs waiting. And for the first time, I wasn't there to catch everything before it fell. And it fell. The silence in my life became different after that. Not empty, just mine. I started sitting on my porch in the morning with coffee I didn't have to rush through. I noticed the way the light came through the curtains without interruption. No phone ringing. No emergencies disguised as love. Just peace. Stay with me, because what happened after I stopped saying yes to everything exposed who truly valued me and who only valued what I provided. My mother called less at first, then more sharply. Then only when she needed something she couldn't handle alone. And I realized something painful, but freeing. I had never been part of their emotional world. I had been their system. One evening, she called again. Her voice wasn't sharp this time. It was uncertain. Things weren't working the way they used to. Shane wasn't stepping in. And suddenly, she needed me again. But I didn't rush. I listened. And I said calmly, "I can't fix everything anymore." That sentence changed everything. The consequences weren't dramatic at first. Just quiet cracks in their routine. Missed support. Delayed help. Problems they had always assumed would disappear because I would handle them. Shane didn't suddenly become responsible. He just became absent again. And my mother, she started noticing what she had refused to see for decades. That the person she called replaceable had been holding everything together. If you believe dependable people deserve appreciation before they burn out, subscribe. Because too many good people spend decades being valued only when they're useful. And honestly, would you have forgiven that comment? It wasn't a grand apology. It was a quiet moment weeks later when my mother said, "I didn't think you would actually step back." And then, after a pause she couldn't fill with pride or control, she admitted, "I was wrong to say that to you. Not perfect, not emotional, just honest in a way she had never been before." And for the first time, I didn't need her approval to breathe. Now my mornings are different. Coffee. Silence. A home that doesn't echo with demands. No emergencies waiting for me to fix them. No guilt attached to my phone. No expectation that my life belongs to everyone else first. And I finally understand something I should have learned long ago. Being needed is not the same thing as being loved. If this story touched your heart tonight, subscribe and come back tomorrow. Because sometimes the hardest thing we ever learn is that protecting our peace isn't selfish. The day my mother called me replaceable was the day I finally realized my worth had never depended on her opinion.